Hello, Bass Gorillas. Robert Fumo, aka Mr. Fumowitz here. Today we have a great interview for you. We sat down with Carlos Lopez, aka LosXL. He's an up-and-coming DJ producer from Washington, D.C. by way of Mexico. In this interview, we touch on his Latin music influences, as well as his process for writing tracks. He's a very humble and insightful guy. He's only 24 years old, so it's quite impressive what he's turning out. His tunes are definitely banging. So without further ado, I bring you Carlos Lopez, aka LosXL. All right, cool. So Carlos, my buddy Carlos here. How's it going?
What's going on, man?
Doing good. Just trying to. It's obviously late here, and I just did a solid day of work, so I'm pretty tired. But I'm super excited to talk to you and get some solid info out of you. We have a pretty huge following of gorillas that enjoy not only your music but just bass in general. So hopefully we can get some cool tips and tricks out of you. I've been peeping through your SoundCloud here, and you have all kinds of different types of, whether it's trap, you got some Moombathon and whatnot going on here, but all very bass heavy, and we are totally into that. So first of all, let's who are you and where are you from?
Well, my name is Carlos Lopez. I go by Lowsxl. I'm residing right now in Washington, D.C. Been here for quite some time.
Right. If you don't mind, how old are you?
I'm 24.
Sweet. How long you been making music?
It's about to be, well, I started in 2011, really late 2011. So it's been about 5 years now.
What program do you use?
I started off with Fruity Loops. Then it's about to be 2 years now that I went into Ableton.
Right, so that's actually my DAW of choice too. I've messed around with Fruity Loops, and I don't know if it's Seamless's ability to make, Seamless, our buddy from YouTube. He makes a lot of crazy shit in Fruity Loops, so I know that program's completely and totally capable of making banging shit. But when it comes to Ableton, I just think it's a better workflow. Would you agree?
Each one of them, I believe each one of them has its own little perks. Honestly, on sampling vocals, I really like Fruity Loops.
Really? Why?
It's easier.
And what do you use to sample?
Just a regular. Well, here I use the regular, the simpler on Ableton,
right,
or the sampler. I use either one. I know how to use both of them. But on Ableton, I would just put in the sample, and then I could just loop it. Everything was about the same thing, but I would just mess around a little bit more, and the pitch, switching up the pitches, like when I switched the notes, was so much easier to put a glide on. I believe.
Are you using Harmor in Fruity Loops originally? What was your sampler in Fruity Loops?
No, I just used the regular sampler.
Oh, nice.
I didn't no plug-in.
Right.
It was just a regular sampler, and a lot of earlier stuff I used Fruity Loops. Like I said, so like the most recent past 2 years has been a lot of Ableton.
Nice. So your musical history, I guess I'm curious what your first influences were. Like, give me an idea of what your first musical memory would be. Like for myself, it would be, I'd be in the passenger seat of my dad's car, and he would just be singing at the top of his lungs, Supertramp, the Beatles, and CSR, like Crosby, Stills, Nash type stuff. So that's my first music memory. What's yours?
The one that I remember the most was I used to live in Texas, also in Houston, Texas. When I was living, there was a lot of cumbia there. Like it was really Mexican-based music on the radio.
What do they call it?
Cumbia.
Cumbia.
Yeah.
And that's that oompa oompa oompa.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I know it well.
Yeah, so I would hear a lot of cumbia on the radio when I was in the car with them. So, I grew up with that. That's like what I remember the most. Of course, Selena, everybody knows Selena.
Of course.
Yeah, I grew up with
R.I.P. Selena.
Peace, yeah. She's Tex-Mex cumbia too,
Right.
So she boosted up a level what cumbia was. So I think, like I said, that's the most I remember growing up as. And after I moved over here to where I'm at, I got into reggaeton, which is Puerto Rican.
Right.
I heard this CD is called La Cripta. That's like really old school reggaeton. When it first started, that's when like I really got into music. Like I was already listening to everything, but I was really into like that style because it had the rhythm. So it was different for me.
Do you play any instruments?
Actually, I don't play no instruments.
It's so funny that you can create such incredible music but not have like, you know, a lot of people say that it's a must that you play an instrument, and clearly it's not as important as a lot of people make it out to be.
No, it's definitely not a must. If you really like, I based a lot of my music on rhythm. I feel like it has to have a bounce. There's a lot of people, like a lot of grimy stuff, like, you know, dubstep and certain things. You can't dance to that. There's no possible way, in my opinion, to dance to that. So I base my music into something that, you know, people could dance to. It could be something different. Not something that, you know, I don't know. Like I said, I was just my whole growing up with music. It always had rhythm. Mm-hmm. And the funny part is, you know, like the reggaeton and all that stuff, like, you know, what they call the dembow. My culture, they never really had that. They never they had the cumbia, which, you know, has its own rhythm, but dembow, they never really incorporated that at all. So it was really different from what I do, you know, because basically where I'm over here is really like Central American and Puerto Ricans and a couple of Dominicans here and there, but mostly Puerto Ricans and Central Americans. So
the Mexico crew doesn't get up to the Northeast often, do they? They kind of stay down south where it's like more their weather.
I mean, there's a couple here, but it's just like a whole different culture. Like they never clash with each other. It's just like either you listen to Mexican music, or that's it, or you're like based on everything else, you know, like all the other cultures interact.
It's funny how the cultural phenomenon can totally influence music. So you got obviously the Northeast, whatever scenes there, but then it's infused with all the different cultures that happen to be there. So you're originally a DJ, or did you start producing first?
Honestly, I started producing first. So after that, I learned DJing. Like, I actually didn't learn practicing. I just learned by looking.
Really?
Yes. And then the first time I actually got into DJing, the first time I touched, it was 1200 Technics. Uh-huh. And when the first time I touched them, I actually got it. I was like, wow. And everything was just based on looking.
And then did you get into using like Seratos and Tractor, those programs?
It was Serato at first, yes, Serato.
That's my fave.
Yeah, Serato. And then recently, I went a couple friends' house and they had a Tractor. I learned how to use Tractor on the spot also with the 4 channels. I was just like I said, basically everything I learned is just by looking.
Right on. So let me check your setup here. So what exactly do you work with? So I know you run Ableton. Are you studio monitors? I want a good rundown of your studio setup.
Yeah, Yamahas for my monitors.
Which Yamahas are they?
They're really old. They're like 2012 Yamahas.
Are they the NS8s or the?
I don't remember but they're the. Do
they have the white cone?
Yes.
Yeah, those are the shit, man. They're like the standard.
I got those earlier, way earlier. So I've been using those. They're really old, but you know they do the job.
Your music sounds like it's mixed well. Like do you do your own mixing and mastering?
A lot of the stuff I do my own mixing and mastering, yes. Nice.
You don't ever outsource that to anybody, or?
Lately, when I've done a couple projects with like labels, they'll do the master. The majority of the mixing down is me. Like example, I've been working with this new record label called La Clinica. They're based off Miami, Florida. Right. The guy that owns that, his name is Frank. He's an engineer. He's huge in the industry. He's got a couple Latin Grammys. He's huge. He did I don't know if you ever heard the Spanish version of Lean On with J Balvin. He's the one that mixed and mastered that.
I haven't, but I'll definitely check it out because I love the original.
Yeah, he did the Spanish version of that. He and a couple other. He works with Diplo. He works with like a couple other people. So big in the industry. So I've been working with him. I got a EP coming out with him, coming out of his. Yeah, he's gonna mix and master everything. So
when's that happening?
I'm not sure yet. We haven't have a date yet. We're still working on artwork and all that stuff, but hopefully by the end of this year.
Okay, so the tracks that you make, let's get a solid breakdown of your process. So you have a blank Ableton project, and Carlos, aka LosXL, wants to make a track. What is it? How does that unfold?
Majority of the time, I just start with drums. I'm big with drums because a lot of the stuff I heard early on was electronic wise. The drums always stood out to me. I like punchy drums. I like something that you could just feel. And after that, I go to a snare. I like putting snares because that's what brings the rhythm. That gives that little swing. I go through a lot of snares, but I have a little pack that I've been working on, a Moombahton pack.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask, the samples that you use, are you a MIDI note guy? Like, do you throw it all into a drum rack? Do you create audio channels and throw audio samples into the audio channel? Or
it depends. Majority of the time I do audio. Mm-hmm. There's occasional where I want to have a little more control. I do the MIDI.
Right.
So, but majority of the time is audio, and because I've been doing it for so long now that like I got so used to Ableton in the last 2 years that it's just so easy for me because it's not really that different from FL.
Right. But it's funny the way you look when I look at when they're doing just simple stuff like cutting things, like cutting like an audio file that's in a track. Like you got to go click on the knife, and then you got to come down. That would bother me because in Ableton it's just you click it and it's Command E. Is there shortcuts or what do they call that?
There's shortcuts also for that, but I mean, so certain things on FL is a little bit of a process compared to Ableton. But what I noticed on Ableton, there's certain things where it's a bigger process than FL.
Fair enough. I guess it's just you work with one long enough, you just kind of figure out how fast you can get it done. So. Yeah, okay, so you got drums down, snare down. Is this a 16-bar loop of just?
I usually just do. I start off with 4 bars.
4 bars, kicks and snare action, and then are you adding other elements, or are you?
Sometimes I add a couple perks, but after that, usually what I do after the kick and the snare, I look for vocals, like a little, even if it's a little vocal shot. Or if I find a bigger vocal, I just chop it up to see what I like. Because like a lot of my music is based on vocals. Like I love sampling vocals for drops. I just love sampling in general.
No, totally. I'm right there with you, man. I'm right there with you.
A lot of the music I do with samples is not really VST wise.
Right. So throwing a vocal into sampler, are you doing MIDI chops, or how are you doing your MIDI? Or how are you doing your vocal processing?
I do MIDI chops. You know how on Ableton on the sampler you could choose with the loop how far you want it.
Yeah.
To go. That's what I usually do. Or sometimes I just don't use the loop at all. And there's occasionals where I'll use the same chop I do to make a riser so I could stay on note with my riser and my build up.
Right.
So I make that same vocal. I make it into a riser.
Aha. So like dup.
Sometimes even faster.
Right.
It depends what mood the song is going on.
Okay, so you got vocals then just happened. Is that still a 4-bar loop, or do you bust out the arrangement at that point?
No, I still don't do the arrangement. Like based on the vocal, like I just build that up. Or sometimes even if I don't do the vocal, what I'll start off is I do a drop. I'll do the drop first, and then based on the drop, that's how I'll do my intro. From the intro, that's where I go to do my build up. So I work a little weird, little backwards.
I'm telling you, you're actually describing exactly how I do it.
Yeah, like a lot of people.
It's cool to know that I'm doing it the right way, or at least someone successful is doing it the way I do it. So right on.
Yeah, I mean, there is no right way, but it's whatever you're comfortable with. But like for doing it for so long, like I got comfortable with doing a drop first because that's what people listen to the most. And like that's why also me as myself, that's what I enjoy. I enjoy a great drop.
Right.
So based on that, that's where I go make my intro. Like one thing I learned from when I first started, I used to like make my intro so complex that it wasn't flowing with the song. So now I just became really simple with my intros, and then on my lead and my build up, I would like make it really like to make sure that it fit to where my drop was going to be bigger than what that was. But I'll make sure that
when do you bust out arrangement?
I bust it after I do the drop and I do the intro. Then that's when I start doing all the arrangement.
And then do you have like a template for your arrangements, or do you stick to like a standardized way? The intro, the build up, the drop, the break. Is it always a set thing, or do you kind of just go?
It depends what I'm making, honestly. Like I really don't have I don't have a plan as when I start making a song. I just go with whatever I'm doing at the moment, and if it sounds good at the moment, then I'll think of hey, there's gonna be an 8-bar intro, like for example, if it's Moobatone, or it's gonna be a 16 bar. You know, it all depends. I could just change it up, or maybe it's not even gonna have like that original dembow, kick, snare intro. It'll just have like a synth intro or like a vocal intro. And
speaking of synths, let's get into that. What's your synth VST of choice?
Lately I've been using Serum a lot.
That is like the go-to now. It was Massive in my opinion, and now
I use Massive also, but yeah, Serum, like wow, like
the thing is insane.
Yeah, I feel like it's like a mix of Silent One, which is great also, and Massive together brought into one.
Do you so aside from Serum, any other synthesizer plugins that you enjoy? Massive, obviously.
Massive, Silent One, also Spire.
Right.
Spire's good, but it's the only thing I don't like about it is a little heavy on the CPU.
Some of those can be. It's funny, I was noticing that I was having to flatten a lot of, because I love stacked synths.
Yeah.
As many channels as I can get to add as much character as I can get, but it's only 3 or 4 instances of Serum before that my thing's just blinking like you need to freeze some of me. So I totally feel with that. Let me so your synthesizers are always VST, or do you tend to do you use any live instruments? What other elements do you use? Do you record anything?
Well, the only thing I've been recording lately is vocals. I've been recording vocals.
So you have some artists that you get some?
No, I do it myself.
Really?
Yeah, I just been trying it out. Like before, I've done it in a song before, and it sounded good. And I was just like, but I wasn't so like big on it, so I never did it again until recently. I started doing it more often. I was just like, hey, it's hard for me to get artists to like see my vision,
right,
or see what I want to go with. And also I had a lot of artists that do vocals that they say they're going to work on it, and I wait months and months and months and nothing ever happens. And
Don't you hate that, man?
They never call me back, and I'm like, hey, that's not good.
I feel you, man. Trying to collaborate with people can be one of the most frustrating things ever. Especially if you have like a lot of passion and you're like, I want to get this done, and then people just aren't there, and you're like, one of these days I'll find someone who cares as much as I do. You know what I mean? So I'm curious about your vocal processing. Like, say, you have a set of vocals. So you lay some vocals, you rock the vocals into a microphone that I'm sure you have at the house. So you have your audio file. What do you do from there?
Just a little bit of reverb. Depending where I go with, I'll add a little delay, not too much. Mm-hmm. Most of the reverb, I wouldn't do it too much. I try to make it sound as natural as possible. I mean, my voice itself is not the best for a track,
right?
So I do a little editing with an auto tune. So I do maybe pitch it down a little bit, a couple octaves, or pitch it up. It depends on the track, like I said. Depends where I'm going with it, because vocals are really like based on what your drop is going to be. Like if it's a low vocal, to me, honestly, I would like a high pitch, like a higher frequency drop. because that's gonna make it stand out a little bit more.
Right, like a good contrast.
Yeah, good contrast. To differentiate like the difference of what you're really going with. But also like I said, it all depends. Like I did a track with Snappy Jet. They're based on Miami. It came out in Good Enough. Matt is Good Enough. All their vocals are high pitch. I had sent them an idea. I had sent them an instrumental, and my drop was a little higher frequencies. It had barely any mids, and it had no lows at all. And based on that, even though their vocals were high pitched, it still worked out. So like I said,
it was a good contrast.
Yeah, so it all depends.
Right. Okay, so track is arranged. It sounds like you got some percussion elements. You got some vocal action in there. You said you laid a bass line under your original drop, which is one of the first things you work with. What about, for instance, like breaks and those points in a song where they kind of get rid of all the percussion and do some atmospheric kind of things? How do you work with those?
Sometimes I go based off what I did with the drop. Maybe I'll take the MIDI from that and change up the sound. And there's occasional where on the breaks I would just use vocals to fill it up.
Right.
And I won't add no drums, but I'll add percussion. So I'll go based on that. So basically, like what I'm basing off my break is what majority of the time, like I said, is vocals. So I'm basically basing everything on the vocals and what the perks are filling it up with. And then my build-up. My build-up has to be huge. I have to make huge build-ups.
Right.
Like, even though they sound big, they're the most simplest things. I just have like a sweep, like a noise sweep up. Maybe I'll layer a couple sweeps with noise that have like different frequencies. The riser, like a synth riser. I always have to add a synth riser because it builds it up more. And then if I have the vocal, I'll add the vocal, but I'll make sure it pitches up while it's building up. So it'll make like the perception that something big is coming.
Totally.
So like I said, that's my biggest things. After I do the drop, like the intro, like I said, I try to keep that simple, and my break and my drop have to be like coming along together, making sure that they are one.
So let's talk about your sound design skill. Are you a preset user, or every sound you make, you're jumping in there and you're making every parameter switch and change on the fly as you go?
I do use presets on CRM, and also, like I said, a lot of things I sample. So when I sample the stuff, I always try to change up the sounds.
Right.
So I always try to make my own thing based off whatever sample, like if it's a vocal or if it's a synth I found itself. But I always try to change it up. I never try to make it sound like originally it was.
Right. What is your go-to place for presets, samples? What's your... Do you have any secret spots that you score all your material from, or?
Honestly, it's just stuff I had before. Like I would just go to Google and just search up like banks. Like for example, I'll search up like Dominican Dembow. Dominican Dembow, they use a lot of vocal stuff. So I'll search up banks based off that, so I could just get the vocals and just sample those vocals.
Right.
And it's like Google is my favorite place. It's crazy. It sounds so simple, but yeah, just search up stuff because it's so much free stuff out there that you could find. And
right, because a lot of people are paying for samples and whatnot.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of stuff that you could buy and is really, really good. Like, it's so much quality in there. But there's also there's certain things that you just don't have money for. So you have to find certain ways to make yourself work with it.
Or why pay for it when you can get it for free?
Yeah, exactly. I also use YouTube. I sample a lot of YouTube videos.
I rip YouTube all the time.
Yeah, a lot. Just one little sample, like one little vocal sample that you like, and that's what you're gonna use for your track. Do
you? I want to get into your studio some more. Because this is a huge something I'm trying to understand, because it's a whole science. Are you mixing and producing in a sound-treated studio?
Honestly, no.
What?
I live in an apartment.
Right.
You can hear everything, and a lot of my mixing is based off my headphones.
Got it.
I mean, but then I go refer with my monitors. Like I always check it out also with my monitors. But a lot of the stuff I do is headphones, mixing down wise at least, and
So
mastering.
do you find your room is pretty tight, or do you have any treatment whatsoever? Do you have any sound treatment up, or?
No treatment at all.
Really?
Yes, no treatment at all. It's just like I said, it's just basically based off what I'm doing. And plugins, like I said, like noise reduction plugins. I use a couple wave plugins that reduce the white noise out of it. So,
Oh, nice.
like if I'm doing vocals,
Right.
so I just process it and then I just go based off that.
And then you have probably a solid set of like studio mixing style headphones.
I have they're called B-Mata.
Are they made for mixing and mastering, or?
They're studio headphones.
Do you have them right next to you? Could you show the crew? Those are pretty nice.
Yeah, they're nice.
How much is that set?
I paid $150 for them. They're normally about like $200 or so, like top 200. Depends. It's just based off design.
But you'd recommend them, obviously.
I got recommended on these one time when I was in Miami working with I don't know if you ever heard of Trapsillas.
Yep.
I was in Miami working with him. Other guys like Happy Colors, Hyde Turner, Clips Ahoy.
Yep.
Well, Clips Ahoy, he's the one that recommended them to me because that day I didn't bring headphones. I forgot them when we were in the studio. So he let me use his. And while I was working something while we were in the studio, like I fell in love with them. I was like, wow.
I got to get me some of them.
It was really, really different for me. You could hear a lot of stuff. You could hear a lot of lows, a lot of frequencies you normally can't hear in other headphones.
Right.
So it was pretty good. I also use Soul Republics. They're pretty good too. The master ones.
Yeah, I know a lot of people struggle with the idea of trying to mix and master shit, and then it comes down to just not having a room that's worth a damn, and then the only other alternative would be to just grab some headphones, because in certain situations I've heard that sound treatment to get it dialed in properly is silly amounts of money, let alone having to have, you know, a person with technical know-how come out and be like, you need a bass trap there, you need a diffuser there, you need this, that, because I wouldn't have any clue where needed to go what, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I have a friend that does that, and he told me all these things. I was like, yeah, I don't even have the money for that, you know? So I always try to keep things simple. Like when I first originally started, man, I was using iPod headphones.
Nice.
To make music. And you know what's crazy? Like they were so good that I could actually mix down on them.
I understand that that's probably a good way to do it, because a majority of the people that are going to be listening to the music that you're putting out on, whether it's SoundCloud or YouTube's or whatever, are probably throwing them in earbuds anyway.
Yeah, and you know what's the best advice I've gotten about headphones and, you know, like monitors?
All about advice.
Always try to do it on the lowest volume, like mixing down wise. Always try to do it in the lowest volume possible, because if you can make it sound good on some shitty headphones or make it sound good in like low volume, then imagine what you could do with good headphones, good monitors, good sound.
Right.
Like it's gonna sound even greater. So if you could do it with low volumes, or like I said, shitty headphones, then and make it sound good, then you're in the money.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So 2-part question. What do you feel you are in terms of music production? What do you feel you're the best at? Like, what is your, like, I'm so good at chord progressions, or I will, you know, knock out any bass line, or vocal chops. That's my thing. Like, what is your number one skill you believe?
Honestly, a lot of like I'm going based off what people come when they want to collaborate with me. Mm-hmm. They ask me for drops, so they know I do a lot of vocal chopping. So, and my drops are based on a lot of vocal chops.
Right.
So they'll come to me, hey, could you have this track? I have an intro, I have a break, but I don't have a drop. So could you do the drop and, you know, work whatever else you want to work with, but I want you to do the drop.
So you're the drop man.
So a lot of people come for me for the drops.
Nice.
Or sometimes arranging like tracks. Like I'm not so big in like, how to do like pop music, radio style songs, but I kind of know how to arrange certain songs based off what you show me,
right.
or people show me, or I do myself. So I know how to work around certain things. But like I said, a lot of people come for me for drops or even advice. They're like, hey, what does this sound? I'm like, hey, this goes there, but this doesn't sound good there, or like certain things. But drops, yeah, I'm huge in drops.
Well, then that leads into the second question. What do you suck at? And what do you totally want more experience? Or for me, it would be chord progressions. Chord progressions just are, I can do them, but it takes me a long time before I'm like, I actually like this, finally.
Honestly, I'm the same way, chord progressions. I can make melodies here and there, like I have ideas. Honestly, sometimes I just record it on my phone and just pass it to Ableton, and then I turn it into a MIDI.
Right.
But like making a huge chord progressions, I'm horrible at that. I'm actually like taking my time now to start learning a little bit more, because I feel like I need to advance a little bit more. I need to get better. Like that's one thing that's my disadvantage.
Right.
A lot of music nowadays has a lot of chord progressions, and I love chord progressions.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like I feel like I need to like boost up my go to the next level, basically.
Yeah, I mean that's what I see a lot in the newest genres that are becoming really popular. These like future bass, these gigantic, thick, crazy chord progressions with just however many octaves that they're filling with MIDI to just make these just insane in your face. Yeah, it's a lot of work. Takes some time too. So I'm curious about your music interests, other than making music yourself. When you're hanging out with your crew and you're doing a social event, what's on the radio, or what's in the CD player, what's on the iPod?
I listen to everything. Like I said, hip hop, Spanish hip hop, gangster hip hop. I listen to a little bit of everything. Cumbia, like I said, stuff from like Central America that are like completely different from my culture, that my culture doesn't even listen at all.
Right.
I try to listen to everything. Like I said, I grew up around music, so when I was younger too. So it's just like I learned to like enjoy what each track it takes to get to what it was.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, rock. Listen to a lot of rock, mostly hip hop and like rock, more hip hop than anything though.
Right.
Yeah, and like reggaeton and all that stuff, like Spanish music.
Nice. So, in terms of your future goals in music, do you see yourself in music for the rest of your life? Is this like what you're going to be doing? Is this your gig for the long haul?
Honestly, yeah, man. I've been like I've never really realized until I started producing that I've been in the music industry for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Like since I was 15 years old. So it's been like 9 years that I've been in it. Because over here locally, there were a lot of promotional events that I will get invited to, or I will go to. Like when I was young, they had a lot of teen events.
Mm-hmm.
I would always be there. I was cool with all the DJs. I was cool with all the promoters. By the time I was like 16, 17, I was already going to clubs that were 18 and up, 21 and up. So, I've been in it for so long that
right.
Like I knew that's what it was. Like once I started producing, I realized like, wow, I've been doing this for so long that this is where it's gonna be, and I hope it continues.
Well, what do you think you could provide younger producers with in terms of do's and don'ts for starting out? Like, what would you say is, like, if you were to say travel back in time to your big, you said you started about 5 years ago?
Yeah, about five or 6 years ago, but mostly like five and a half or so. Yeah.
So if you could go back in time and see Carlos the day he purchased Fruity Loops for the first time, what would you tell him to do? And also, what would you say, stop doing that. Don't do that and do this.
Honestly, when I first started, I literally just went into it without actually knowing what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
That was my mistake. I wish I would have took my time to actually sat there and learn the whole program, or sat there and learn what it took to make a certain genre and what I could do to make it even better.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I didn't do when I first started. And I believe that it was a mistake, but I mean, at the end of the day, it still worked out. But it really, like, I believe people should really, like, take their time to see what it takes to make a certain song.
Right.
Because you can learn a lot, even just by sitting and listening to your favorite song. Like, hey, look, it has this perk. Look what the vocals did. Look what the synth did. Look, like, different bass line. You could learn a lot from that. And it took me about 2 years from when I started to actually realize that I was doing a lot of things wrong.
What specifically were you doing? Do you have any specifics on things that you were doing wrong?
I wasn't mixing down when I first started at all. So everything was just clipping. Everything was just horrible. I had I think it was like occasion where somebody played my song and it popped the speakers.
Oops.
So yeah, it's like certain things like that. I was just like, you learn from it, and like I was like, no, I have to learn better. I have to go more in depth in this and learn what it takes to be, one of the top, one of the best. But even when you come to the best, there's still so much to learn.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Every day there's something new. You always have to keep up, but at the same time, one of the best things I've learned throughout this whole time was keep true to yourself. Do what you like, and if people like it, then that's a plus, because they're liking what you like, and you want to show them what you like. And a lot of people they don't do that. They just go follow the trend.
Right. And that's another question I have. How do you feel a producer who's getting a good skill set, is figuring out, his own sound, I guess you would say. How do you think an individual starting out would be able to stand out from the crowd, as it were? Like, what is something that you would do, consciously or consciously, to not make another Skrillex track or not make another Diplo track? Because Skrillex and Diplo are already making tracks that are probably better than what you're going to try and reproduce. So what do you think about that?
I mean, even if you try to make one of their tracks, I mean, just get ideas. Always, like, a lot of times I have a big writer's block. I just go listen to other people's music. Even if it's not electronic, it could be like a pop song, a hip hop song, or whatever. And if you like something, like, try to mix everything together and make your own thing. That's one thing. Like, you can't copy people, because then you're really not gonna stand out.
Right.
Not at all. So I wish, like, I mean, if you like a certain thing from it, hey, I like this, so I use this from this track, and I use this other thing from this track, that idea, and I try to make it my own, so I can make a full new track.
Right. I think copying, for one that taught me a ton about music production, is literally reverse engineering a song. Like, taking a song that I really, really liked and literally trying to reproduce it completely. And in the beginning, I felt kind of guilty that I was doing that I was not necessarily stealing other people's music more than I felt like I was not being original. But then I thought about it. People like Mozart, Beethoven, Bach, any one of these incredibly, timeless musicians, the thing that they probably had to do when they were starting out is learn exactly to a T pieces that had come before them. So Mozart, I'm sure when he was 15, 16, or however old when he was learning, had to learn 100% exact the pieces that came before him. So when I think of the pros of music that have existed, I guarantee that the reverse engineering concept is part of what made them so great, is literally breaking down the pros before they really could become professional themselves. I guess just a tangent, but just an idea that I stick to.
No, and I agree because I mean, look at it now. When people try to learn the piano, they're remaking stuff that's already made.
Right. Mary Had a Little Lamb.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I totally agree with that. You know, I mean, there's a lot of people that I've encountered, and they'll take like a whole MIDI, like a MIDI drop, and they'll add it to their own drop from a whole different song.
And sometimes it even works out.
Yeah, so I've seen a lot of stuff. So I mean, I agree with that. You know, it's just like I said, just don't completely copy when you're making your own original stuff.
Right, exactly. So I wanted to talk to you about. I'm sorry, you were saying something. Go ahead, brother.
Oh no, it's that as long as you're learning, you know what I mean. It's nothing wrong with it.
Right. So I want to talk to you about branding and marketing. You got a pretty solid following on SoundCloud. Are you a YouTube user?
I actually haven't been using YouTube until like I started a little bit, but I never really like fully went on YouTube completely.
How do you brand and market yourself? Like, where did your brand come from, and how do you get that to the world?
Honestly, just talking to the people, you know, and showing them who you really are, you know, like as a person, not as an artist. You know, like interacting with them. Because I used to do other project before this. I learned a lot before that. I used to be in a duo.
Oh, so you had a previous alias.
A previous one before this that taught me a lot. You know, talking to people. You know, always keep it humble. You know, if you're humble, always keep it humble with everybody.
Right.
You know, talk to everybody. You know, because your fans, you know, the people that support you are the ones that are always gonna like. They're the ones asking for you. They're the ones actually giving you the shows. You know, they're the ones selling out the shows, or you know, buying your music, or you know, whatever the situation is. And then after that, if you want to have visuals, you know, like make sure they're strong. Make sure that they're you. Like for example, I have my logo, which is just my regular name. It's just something. It's something in bold, really bold letters. Mm-hmm. That stands out itself. But I also have another one where it's a candy skull, and it has like a little hat, and it has my logo in it. So that stands out itself too, and a lot of that because I'm known for Moombahton. I've always been known for Moombahton for
years now.
Most of the time I've been producing.
Right.
So Candy Skull was really based off what Moombahton was. When you think about Moombahton, they always try to interact it with Candy Skull. So I went based on that, you know, like it's like, but also I mean I like Candy Skull. This is good art. I love art. So
no, right on. That,
I did.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I did that, and you know, I always try to interact with, try to put everything together, and always try to make things stand out with, even if it's like the slightest color.
Have you ever used any marketing agencies or paid anybody to help get your brand out there? Have you just been solo most of the time?
No, everything's been solo, honestly. Everything's been solo.
And your SoundCloud traction, I'm curious to see how you go about, or how one goes about getting people to give a damn about the tracks that you're putting out.
Honestly, quality.
Right.
Because when I was doing the Moombahton, the last couple of years, a lot of people started doing Moombahton, and it wasn't the greatest quality. So what I try to do is I was like, you know what, I'm going to stand out. I'm going to try to make different sounds, because all the people that were starting to make Moombahton around the time, they were making Moombahton that sounded like the original Moombahton. So it was something that was already made. It was sounds that were already used. So I always try to make something different and try to even, like I said, boost it up to the next level, where they were like, wow, you know, I heard your old stuff before, but this new stuff is completely different. Like, it's like I see your progress.
Nice.
So, and I've heard that a lot from a lot of people. So I always try to do that. I always try to make my next track better than the last one.
So you think quality is what ultimately will set you apart from everybody else?
No, definitely quality. And because before I used to make tracks every week, and I'll release a track every week. But I stopped that because I felt like I was rushing. I was rushing something that could be better, because the next week after I released it, I was like, wow, I could have changed this, I could have changed that. But I was so impatient at first that I was just like, wow, you know, could have been better. So quality is definitely like what stood me out from a lot of people.
Well, from beginning to end, so blank Ableton project to mixed and mastered single audio file, like typically how long does that take you?
To mix down and master each?
No, I'm saying literally from a blank slate, so literally nothing, to done one audio file mastered. Generally.
I mean, there's no general with me, honestly. It could take me from 0 to maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, or from 0 to months.
So like let's say this. So let's say what is the fastest you've finished and mastered what you would call a quality track?
2 hours.
What?
2 hours, but that's because I was really inspired and
Hold on, from beginning to end?
From beginning to end. And it's because I was really inspired and I was just like, hey, I can't stop. I just have to keep going and going and going.
Wow.
And I have those moments where it's just like I'll maybe take 4 hours, 5 hours, but like on certain things I would take months. There's time where I'm just like, it's so good, but then I take a little break and go with it and go back to it that I don't have ideas anymore. So I'll let it sit for months, weeks, days, and I'll go back to it eventually and I'll add a little bit more stuff or remove stuff. And then I'll just stop having ideas again and I'll just leave it there again. And I would just keep doing that over and over and over again until I finally finish a whole track. And there's a track, it took me, I'll say 7 months, maybe more.
No,
just one.
That's crazy because, I pride myself on trying to get music done quicker, but I think having that perspective it's kind of enlightening actually. So you'll sit on tracks for as long as it needs until you'll come up with new ideas. Like, when do you know a track's done?
Honestly, when a lot of times I always like listen to a whole track, I'm like, okay, I'll see if it's missing anything. Because there's certain times that you can fill it up a little bit more, but there's certain times that you should remove stuff. Less is more.
Right.
Less is more.
Keep that delete button at hand.
Yeah, less is always more because the simpler you could make a track, the bigger it's gonna be. That's definitely the biggest lesson I have learned throughout this whole career. Because like I said, I used to like fill it up so much that it would take off. Different sounds will be clashing and perks will be clashing, and
right.
You really didn't know what was going on. You wouldn't enjoy it as much as just simple stuff.
What does your project file look like? Like, you have a folder that has all your projects in it, right?
Yeah.
How many projects do you have in there right now?
Give me a second. I'll open it up. It'll probably be a lot. There's a lot of stuff that's so unfinished. Like, I'll just start a lot of stuff and I would never finish it at all.
Right.
But it's just like, I'll take it as practice though. Because there's a lot of times I have writer's block and I'll be like, hey, I'll go start something up and see maybe that'll change it. But there's times it doesn't change it. So I try to just, sometimes I'll stay away for it, maybe a week, maybe a couple days. Mm-hmm. It's even 2 weeks. There's times where I went a month without making anything.
Right. What are you doing? So what do you do? That's a good question I'd like to ask. If you're not making music and in the studio, aside from sleeping and eating, what does Carlos what does Carlos do when he's not being a virtuoso in the studio?
Honestly, I barely sleep. I'll have like 5 hours of sleep tops, like mostly every day for the last year, maybe even less. I have my son. I take care of my son.
Nice. Family man.
Most of the time, yeah, family man. I take care of him most of the day. Just, try to work out, try to get myself in like a positive attitude. Because, a lot of people don't really realize that when you're working with music, you bring yourself down because you can't finish stuff.
Right. And you're always comparing your shit to other people.
Yeah, they're like, why can't it sound like this? Or why can't it be this quality? Or, stuff like that. So I always try to keep myself, in a mental like state where it's going to be really positive. I always try to, unstress myself, whether it's like playing video games here and there, or like I said, working out, taking care of my son, or, just like simple stuff like that, going in walks.
So you're saying that you recommend literally separating yourself from music entirely?
Yeah, you should do that a couple of times, because there's times when you have creative blocks that you're forcing yourself, and you shouldn't be forcing yourself. Because when you force yourself, it sounds forced.
Right.
It sounds forced, you know, and it should be something natural. It should be something that you should just be feeling, and not really forcing yourself to feel.
Right.
So I feel like that's just something that I came up with.
You were going to give me a project file count, because I'm always curious about this.
I'm trying to go with it right now. Just on my Moombahton itself, it's about 30 files on this computer that I have since I have on this computer. Just Moombahton itself.
So you have one file. So you have genre-specific files.
I have genre-specific folders, so I won't ever forget that I have stuff. So if just in case I want to go back,
right,
or go to a certain genre, like let's say I want to do house, I want to do some Moombahton trap or whatever, I'll go on that folder and I'll just open something that I know I didn't finish. And a lot of the time I base it off of dates. I go by month, on the date, and then so that way I know what I was feeling at that time, and I know what I'm feeling now. So I change it up.
Nice.
So it's probably about 100 files, and out of those, probably 15 are done.
Really?
Yeah, and then that's just, like I said, this is just this computer, and then I have my other computer that was straight FL, and I have at least 200 easily, maybe even more, that I probably didn't even finish.
So you have a bunch of projects. Do you think you'll ever jump into those, or do those sit in the back of your mind as I want to do something with those, or does that, the clutter of things that could and should be done, or?
Honestly, only certain files, but not the old ones, only the more recent ones. Only certain ones really stick out to me because I know they could be better. But at the moment, I might not have an idea for it, but I know there's an idea there. So I just let it sit for a while, like I said, and I'll go back to it and I'll start working it out.
How often do you release tracks?
Lately, I've been releasing about one a month. This whole year, I didn't release much. I was trying to do about one a month, but I probably released about 6, 7, not too much. I got a release coming up. I think it's November 1st. It's coming out in it's called Free the Pandas. That's Pandas Funk sub-label for free stuff. That's nice. The old label. I got something coming up. That's Moombahton. I have another one that I just got confirmed today. Is coming in November 8th. With I don't know if you ever heard of First Gift. He does a lot of house, a lot of stuff, a lot of Dutchy stuff. He has his own label that's coming out in that. Lately, I've been trying to concentrate and try to get labels. Because before I never did that also. So that's another big tip for people that are coming up.
Is what exactly?
If you really want your fan base to build up, make sure that a label is gonna like it. But I mean, labels ain't everything, of course, but labels do help. Is a big part on your creative process to come up as an artist.
So when you're saying use labels to help you in the creative process, are you saying get signed to a label and then have them help you further what you're doing, or?
You don't have to get signed to a label. Like me personally, I'm not signed to anybody, but I have tracks signed to Bygore, Good Enough, Clinica. I don't know if you ever heard of Designer Drugs.
Yes.
I've got a track signed to his label also.
Nice.
You have to build a relationship with all these people,
What makes you decide whether or not to be how come you haven't made the decision to sign to a label?
Well, honestly, I've never been asked to, but honestly, at this time also, I wanna build myself as an artist a little bit more.
Right.
And I wanna be the best I feel like I can be. Before I make any decisions or try to reach out to a level that a label is gonna call me and ask me, hey, you want to join me or whatever. I just want to make sure I'm good with myself. I want to make sure I find my sound. I want to make sure I'm doing what I love and what I want people to enjoy, because that's what I enjoy.
And where does that put you in, let's say, 5 years? Where's LosXL in 5 years?
I feel like LosXL in the next couple of years is going to be bigger than it is now, honestly, because the stuff that I've been coming out with now, it's so different from the stuff I ever made. Well, in the aspect of quality and it's more solid. So hopefully, in the next couple of years, I want to reach out to even more labels. Get tracks signed to different labels. I just don't want.
I love this Lost Ladies track, dude. I really do.
Yeah, so funny. That's one of the tracks I didn't take that long to do. I think I took 2 days.
Just one of those inspiration ones?
Yeah, I just found the vocal and I was just like, hey, this vocal sounds good. Let me chop it up. Just what I like, and let me chop up the other part to make the build up. And this sounds good with this beat I already have. It's like I have the skeleton for it already, the track, the instrumental ready for it. So let me see how it sounds, and if it's so perfect. So that's one of my favorite tracks that I have ever done. It's so solid.
This Lost Ladies?
Huh?
Which one? This Lost Ladies?
Lost Ladies, yeah.
That's one. It's good. It's at the top of your list, and it's obviously the first one that people listen to when they go check you out. It's a banger for sure.
It was like a solid track that was so different from what I was doing. Like I said, so I was just like, it really stood out. I actually because of that track, I got an interview with a Latin. It was like a Latin blog, which it's called La Remezcla. It's called in English. That's called the remix. That's what that means.
So you got an interview with them?
I got an interview with them, and they wanted to premiere a track. So I was like, "Hey, here's this." They fell in love with it.
Nice.
They're like, hey, we want this. We really, really want to do this. So I did an interview with them. I started talking to them. They started calling me that I was starting the Moombahton Renaissance.
That's something to be said, man. That's good.
That's what they were saying about me. I was like, wow, that's crazy. Like this stuff that I never really expected. I was just, like I said, I was just doing all this music based off what I like. I wanted something different that I wanted to hear that I haven't heard yet. And like I said, a lot of my stuff is based on vocals. And that, Las Ladies is basically where the ladies at, where, my thing when I'm making music, I want people to dance.
Uh-huh.
When ladies, females dance, that's a party.
Definitely.
And what was going to happen after that? Guys are going to come out. They're going to want to party too.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a whole party, that makes it a complete party. So it's just something that that's why that track was so important to me, because it was different. It was different from what I was hearing at the moment.
I love this question. I call it the $10 billion question. It used to be the 10 million, but since inflation's driven price, it's now billion. So you just found out you have a Swiss great grandfather, a Swiss uncle, who just passed away. You get a mail in an email or even in a postage. You just scored $10 billion, bro. Swiss uncle's dead. Pass it on to you, Carlos. You have $10 billion now in the bank. Are you still making music?
Honestly, yeah, I will still be making music.
And where are you at? And what does your reality look like?
Honestly, money doesn't really change anything because.
Are you still in Washington?
Yeah, I'll still be here.
Still there. You're not on it. I had my last interview basically say he would then buy a ridiculously large yacht, and he would put a ridiculously incredible studio inside the yacht, and he would just make music and tracks while just touring the world. So that was his. I thought that was pretty good.
Well, see, I'm not big in money. I'm like, I was like, born, raised and born with nothing.
Right.
I don't have a rich family. I have a middle class family. So I was never raised to be big in money. Even if I had that money, maybe I wouldn't be here. Maybe I'll go to a different city. But at the same time, I still wouldn't be based on, I wouldn't base the money on my career.
Right.
Because I'm still doing what I want to love. Just like a lot of people, they'll stop doing what they love just to make sure they got money. They'll go do a 9-to-5 job and just to make sure they make ends meet each month.
Right.
I'm not saying I don't go work, to make my money, because I do have a family, but I still gonna make sure that I have my time to work on my music.
Well, let me ask you a question about revenue sources. Like, how does one? because obviously there's 1.5 million of us trying to make it in this industry to some degree or another. Where do you feel the best ways to get money in this industry? Is it playing shows? Are you trying to make money off of, downloads from Beatport? Like, what's your recommendation into trying, whether it's Patreon? I don't know if you know Patreon or Bandcamp, things like that. What do you recommend, and what are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, like, the most money I have ever made doing this music industry has been in shows. Mm-hmm. You really don't win much money on selling music, and that's just the reality of it. Because a lot of people, they will think, hey, I just sold 1 million, sales on one track. They're not really going to see much of that, There's still percentages to be cut out of that.
So performing, you think, is the best route for people?
Performing is the best route to make money wise, at least income wise. Like, even if it's a simple gig, just take it. It's just, I tell people it's practice, Then you're gonna see how people react to your music. People that never heard you before.
I'm thinking, bro, you need to get on that Grand Theft Auto soundtrack.
Which one's that?
I'm just saying any one of them. You know how if you play a Grand Theft Auto game, you can turn on the radio and listen to all different kinds of random nonsense, but it's all actual artists that have been. Yeah. I'm thinking you got some stuff that could be on a number of those stations, bro. I'm thinking that the video game industry and the music industry as far as like bedroom producer types, they need to get in cahoots, because all kinds of video games right now have all kinds of newer types of music in them. At least I'm noticing. Like, I would love to work with, Rockstar and start signing tracks to video games.
Well, there's another way. Sorry to cut you off. There's another way to make money too if you really don't go into the show stuff. For ads, TV ads, movie ads. I actually had a track that came out at a store ad recently this summer. They used my instrumental for. I don't know if you ever heard of Kmart over there.
Of course, I'm American, bro.
Okay. I had one of my tracks used for Kmart.
Nice.
So it was like it came out this summer, and
how do you get that done? How does
everything was based off my vocalist that I used. It was a Moombahton song. Right. My vocalist, she just sent me the vocals. I did all the instrumental. And her manager, we were working out where she was trying to get a deal with this company that is based off just for TV ads, for movies, and, stuff like advertising. Right. She asked me if she could use my instrumental. And I was just like, yeah, go ahead, we worked on it together, and, we could work something out. And she put that one up. Out of all her songs that she posted, was just that one that stood out for everybody.
That's cool, man.
We're like, we want that.
You can't be considered a sellout when you're no, you know what I'm saying? Like, having some tracks for Kmart, that's good. I would have a track for McDonald's if I could.
There's no sellout.
You gotta pay the bills, man. You gotta pay the bills. And it's better than working at Kmart, so.
Definitely. Yeah, it wasn't like crazy money out of it, but it was a little something that can help out. That's always
it's getting your foot in the door into that industry, man. If you could start, like I said, I'm trying to think of all the different ways that, if it's not me, if it's not you, if it's anybody who's listening, how you can try and monetize this skill, because it's a skill, and it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of dedication, and we should be compensated for it. You know what I'm saying?
YouTube. Monetize your YouTube songs.
Yeah.
Make sure you tag them right. Tagging is a big thing, Like, a lot. You could get a lot of plays just based off what you tag.
Hashtags and whatnot.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to keep you too long, and I definitely don't want to, annoy anybody for just because I can blah 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 forever, and I literally could have this interview go for another 2 hours. So I'm gonna do a solid and let you provide your contact info to any and all listening. I have your SoundCloud up right here, but go ahead and give any and all contact info, anything you want to drop on the crew. I'm giving you the floor to allow people to contact you or follow you, get your music. Floor is yours, bro.
No problem. Yeah, I mean, SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/LosXL, Twitter.com/LosXL, Instagram/LosXL. Facebook, same thing, LosXL. Everything LosXL. It's just try to keep it that simple.
And how do you feel about collaborations?
Lately, I've been trying to slow down a little bit on collaborating because I want to make sure that I want to do a little bit better on my own.
Right.
I mean, it's good to work with other people. Don't get me wrong. Because that really touch your creativity. Because if you could have a chemistry with somebody else, imagine what you could make with them. So I'm good with collaborating. I'm big with that. But I also believe that you should be doing it yourself also.
A solo thing also.
Yeah.
Well, I completely and totally appreciate your time, bro. I wish you nothing but the best. We will definitely keep in touch. As far as I'm concerned, you're my homie at this point. I'll definitely keep in touch. I'm following you on SoundCloud as we speak, and I will keep in touch with you. Anybody who's listening, definitely go to this cat's SoundCloud page and check out these tracks. They are definitely banging. I know a lot of people aren't exposed to a lot of Latin electronic music. This dude's got a ton of very influenced Latin rock and bass tunes, man. So check him out. And this was a Bass Gorilla interview. And like I said again, LosXL, I really appreciate it, bro. And hopefully we'll be seeing you soon on a stage near one of us.
Hopefully. Hopefully.